Yeah, that was, when you're on about dark moments in your life, that was right up there. And because I thought that night ended my career for a good while. It very nearly cost me. My career. Could have cost me more. Thankfully, it didn't. I got a second chance.
This is a question I ask frequently as well to athletes. If you could now give, say, a 12-year-old Anthony Crolla some advice, having lived everything that you've lived now and achieved everything that you've achieved, what would you say to a young Anthony Crolla?
I'd say, listen, you've got to be prepared for some lows.
I think the first time I met you was, you didn't fight on the card. You were meant to fight on the Amir Khan, Paul McCloskey bill at Manchester Arena.
Yeah.
That was the first. I remember.
I was meant to, but I didn't end up fighting that night. But wow, that's going back some years. So that was it 2012?
2010, that, mate.
Was it 2010?
You know what? Or maybe it was early 2011.
11, I think it was, yeah.
And then the first time I watched you, again, I've got like a mad memory. I remember everything. Robin Park, you fought on Ricky Hatton's show. Martin Murray was a headliner.
Yes, I remember. I won in the first round that night. A rare easy night.
Yeah, that was the first time I watched you.
It was called. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah, that was. Remembered it. I think Martin Murray boxed Nate Blackwell that night. Yeah. Obviously, I got it. He ended up being a very good fighter himself, but then obviously it was well known for the the little tragedy in the ring. But yeah, wow.
Crazy
time flies.
You know, I've still got the poster of that, knocking around in my room. So I remember I got a poster from that night.
I remember that night, and then and here we are now at the Morson office, and all Morson supported us that night.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's crazy, mate. It's crazy how much your career developed since then. Because I don't know what your thoughts and feelings were about the sport at that moment, but you always Eddie always billed you as like a Rocky story, like an underdog story. Did you yourself believe that you were going to become world champion even at that point?
Yes, I did. Because I think self-belief's massive. Self-belief's huge. And don't get me wrong, if I would have been saying it at some points in my career, I probably would have got locked up saying I'm going to be a world champion when I'd lost early on in my career a few times and stuff. They might have sectioned me or something like that. Do you know what I mean? This guy's mad. He's going to be a world title. But I always knew what I was capable of. And it's just about sort of getting it right on the night and maturing. And also, that little bit of luck. I will say this about almost every sport, every job. I know there is, hard work is what gets you there a lot of the time. And talent as well, a mixture of things. But a lot of the times, you need that little bit of luck. You know, there's been some unbelievable boxers, unbelievable fighters who've not managed to get a world title because they've not got the break for one reason or another. You know, thankfully, I did get my break. There was times when, it looked like it was took away from me. But I feel like I never stopped sort of believing that I could get to that level deep down. Do you know, like I said, I might have, when I'm sharing a bunk bed with my younger brother in my 20s and stuff like that, my 20s, it just doesn't sound very glamorous, but I'd still, at night, last thing you think about is, I want to achieve those goals, and thankfully I did.
Yeah, because I was going to mention the bunk bed thing because after the Robin Park fight, you fought Mayweather versus Ortiz, and you were still sleeping in the bunk bed with your brother. You fought on the Mayweather Ortiz card in Vegas. You go back to sleeping in a bunk bed with your brother.
It was,
That's crazy,
man. I mean, obviously I didn't. I was single at the time. I certainly didn't tell the girls that's what I was doing. But that was it. I was just I was that sort of focused and just at home, and so probably as well didn't have the
distractions.
The distractions to be moving out, placing my own and stuff like that. So I always say it like that $1 million nickname. Geez, I was bluffing it for so long.
But you made it happen, didn't you? You made it happen.
We got there in the end. Yeah. Driving around in my little Corsa and sharing bunk beds with my younger brother.
And now your brother's going to become a pro fighter, making his debut at the same place where you made your debut at the arena.
He is. It's very special. It's very special in that sense. And it's with my younger brother William, he was around for on my big nights, and he was this little kid, and then he was, I said before, he turned into this chubby teenager, and then this lad who wasn't living the way he should be, but he was always backstage and he was always around it. So on the 27th of May, when it's like roles reverse. I mean, hopefully I don't look like a chubby teenager. I don't think I do. I certainly don't look that young. But yeah, it's roles reverse. It just works in full circle.
It does.
Full circle at times. And obviously, listen, I'm very proud of him. Very thankful for the opportunity he's been given, and so is he. But yeah, it will be a mad one. It will be a mad one. A few people go, it'll be emotional for me. Yeah, it probably will. It will be emotional when I think about it. But obviously, I can't show that on the night. But there'll be time when I look back. And also on the night, I always say this about boxing, you've got to try and enjoy it a little bit as well. You've got to try and enjoy it a little bit. A good friend of mine, John Murray, I remember him saying it years before we boxed or anything. It's a short career, this. And I'll say it to so many people, there's so many fighters who'd love to be in your position, fighting at the arena or headlining at the arena. You've got to embrace it a little bit. If you don't enjoy that night and you're too worried, thinking about nerves and I hope I don't do this, I hope this happens. What good is it? What are you doing it for? Okay, people say, well, yeah, the financial rewards. So yeah, maybe so, but I just think, try and enjoy that. Like so much of the hard work's already been put in training camp. So I'm a big believer in trying to embrace the times, like the serious, the moment where, the laughing stops and you've got to be very serious. But there's also a lot around it and on the night that I think you have got to enjoy, so you've got fond memories of.
I mean, that's something I talk with a lot of athletes about. I've talked to Mayweather about it recently when he had his exhibition bout with Aaron Chalmers, and I said, did you ever give yourself them opportunities to sort of smell the roses and see what you've achieved? Because anyone that's obsessed with the craft, you just don't allow yourself that time, do you? You don't even to soak up the moment. When you're stepping into the ring, the crowd for you, mate, was absolutely unbelievable. But I bet you're just hardly hearing it.
Well, that's it. Tunnel vision, the thing, tunnel vision. But I did try and embrace it a little bit, and I always knew when I was no longer boxing that I'd probably never get that feeling ever again. Do you know what I mean? But it's just something you've got to accept. But I can look back at it with fond memories, and I still, get those goosebumps if something got played back or something like that. I don't sit there watching all my old stuff back, honestly. But I might see that clip and I'll remember that night, and there'll be flashbacks from that night and how it made you feel. And even, I always say this, you could be on a night out and someone go, I was there that night and it was brilliant and I was there. And it means the world to me. It does, it really means. So I think you've got to enjoy, you get to enjoy it more probably after it. But I always try to soak it up on the night, like the ring walk and everything like that. That was my favourite bit of it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's a bit nicer than getting punched on the nose, but probably even more than getting my hand raised and stuff like that. Yeah, the getting called out a lot of the times in my hometown to thousands of people cheering your name. No, absolutely. That's like, there's very few people who get to do that, isn't there?
Yeah.
So embrace it, take it all in, and so I suppose be proud in a way.
And like you mentioned, it is a sport that works in cycles. We've seen it with yourself and your brother. And I actually didn't know that your father was a boxer, which now it puts the puzzle together, because I could never see, looking at you, talking to you now, whenever we speak and link up or anything, I think he's the nicest, soundest guy ever, least aggressive person you'd ever meet. But was it your dad that instilled that within you and sort of developed the love of the sport for you?
Yes. So with my dad, and what it was, he took me to the gym with him when I was younger, and you pick up little bits, and I was a little bit I was a very sort of kid who a bit athletic and stuff like that, and I took to it sort of straight away. But my dad, it was more like he was keeping fit and I was going with him and stuff. And that was it really. And then when my dad's work hours changed and stuff, I couldn't get to the gym, and then I got a little bit older, and I remember my mum taking me back on the bus, and at 10 years old, and never looked back ever again after that. I'd say certainly from my dad, because I mean I've got an older brother, but he was never interested in it or all like that. But I just found that I was decent at it. Decent at it, and I took to it really fast, and I loved everything about it. I loved the pushing yourself. I was always a very competitive kid. And I think from an early age, I always pictured myself as doing it as a job. And it's mad, really, because I'm probably going off a tangent a little bit here, but I'd never recommend it to anyone just for the simple reason there's some horrendous times, There's some horrendous times. And it's hard, and it takes it out of you, but the highs, thankfully for me, the highs outweighed those horrendous lows, and they're things I'll remember forever. And like people around me will remember forever. People who come to watch me will remember forever. So that, I never wanted it to be just average, and that's not meaning to be disrespectful, but I never just wanted to be, go to work, do this, do that. I wanted to achieve something, and that was always a big part for me, and thankfully I've done that through boxing.
When you mentioned the lows, were you talking about in your career, or were you even talking about like before your career had started?
Listen, the career, losses, seeing how people change their attitude towards you. That's hard. When lows, when you give it absolutely everything, it's just not your night, and you've just got to accept that. Accepting it. Not even just me. Like, I've seen some of my good friends come up short. I've seen the family in pieces and stuff, and I just think, I hate this sport. I always say it. I always remember one of my good friends, and he gave it absolutely everything, come up short, and it's like I saw how upset, his missus was after it, and he's banged up a little bit. He's on. I think there's got to be nicer ways to make living. There's got to be easier ways, and then obviously a fight was involved in where a lad, Morson, who we know very well, who was supported with Kieran Farrell. That's horrendous. With him, Kieran, that was something that will stay with me forever. But certainly in my career, where I was questioning for a bit, do we even want a box? It has some horrible, it has some of the politics of things, and I see it now with like some fighters and people getting knockbacks with the medicals, which obviously is safety first, and like it's a hard sport, like just getting by on like ends meet. Do you know what I mean? That's and there's people that was me. There's people who have full-time jobs, box. They're selling tickets, and it's like I just respect those so much. I never had a full-time job. I mean, I certainly didn't live the glamorous life as we've mentioned before, but having a full-time job, back, forth, and stuff like that. But it's I've gone off on a right thing here, but
you explain the life of a fighter perfectly, because it's not everyone sees the glamour, and like now you've come through the other side of a place that can be dark sometimes.
There's some dark moments, isn't it? While you're doing it, and listen, you see things, and sometimes it's the easy options on the table. I always say it, if you're a lad off an estate or just one of the lads and you're in the boozers and stuff like that, you're not stupid. There's other ways to earn money. It's not the right way, but there's other ways where you can put yourself and think, that's easy money. And, you have to ignore all those temptations while you're seeing people, at the time, what you think's important, whether it be a T-shirt for a few £100 or whether it be a nice watch on your wrist or something like that. When you get older and you mature, you realise that isn't important. I think that's part of growing up. But that's still hard, because the sacrifices you have to make, because you've got to ignore them. There's so many people, not just in boxing, in sports, in jobs, who could really excel. I'm not like, I feel a bit of a fraud talking about like, getting promoted in a job and then, a business, because I've never done it. But I know there's people who's probably doing well on the right path, and they thought, no, I'm going to do that instead, because they want the money quick, and they want the nice things in life quick without earning them. But I feel like you stop appreciating them. If you've earned it proper and you've grafted for it. Like anything, you appreciate those things that much more, without a doubt. If something's being handed to you, been given to you, it's like, thanks, whatever. But when you've had to go out and work for it, you look at it and there's a sense of pride, isn't there, with 100%,
it? So, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about all those experiences, the dark times, but you did persevere through all of that. Yeah. You became world champion. when the odds were probably stacked up against you the most. So we'll talk about that
Yeah.
after a bit. But that was a crazy time. You'd been attacked, and
Yeah.
going back to your experience with losses in and out of the ring, as a guy, obviously we all know men's mental health, it's so prevalent, and you yourself, you seem like the most happy, easygoing guy. You got hundreds of friends, everyone in the city loves you. When things weren't going your way in the ring and out of the ring, what was your coping mechanism? Did you have people that you knew you could go to?
Do you know what? I've got a good set of friends, Jamal. I've got a good set of friends. I've got a great family, but I've got a good set of friends as well. And there was always very, very real with us. And even when they didn't treat me any different from when I lost on the undercard of a fight, and a fight I shouldn't have done, to me winning a world title, defending a world title, or fighting in Vegas, Los Angeles, or whatever, the arena, it didn't make a difference to them. And that's what I'll always say about my friends. It's a great set of friends where it's funny, like, you know, you rib each other, and I believe that's what friends should be. I believe you should be giving each other, listen, but when it's the time to support them, you support them. And I always say it, my the WhatsApp group chat amongst my mates is brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal, sorry. Like, there's other sets of mates who, like, meet my mate, and they kind of go, oh my God, use a bat. But if someone needs support and if someone needs help, everyone's always there for that person. And I believe that was a big thing. And you realise as well who those people are. I think, you know, when things aren't going your way.
100%.
And I don't want to say, like, there's probably some people who aren't there for you, but they might have problems of their own. They might be struggling themselves, so it's understandable, but you do realise who's there for you through thick and thin, the good times and bad times. And that's why I always think it's so important to have those. Well, there's a saying, like, what's this cheesy saying? I love a bit of a quote. That's it. Don't break bread with someone who you wouldn't starve with, or who wouldn't starve with you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I think that's brilliant. It's something along those lines. And I just think that, you know, you've got to be real. And I see it all the time, like, with people, mate, like, social media is such a big thing now. I'm like, I know I go off tangent here, but it can create monsters. It can create monsters. 100%. And I see people supporting random celebrities, or, do you know what I mean? But they're not supporting the mates. They're not supporting the mates because they want to look. I think they've gone off Twitter now, aren't they, actually? But the blue ticks, I think they're still on Instagram. But
you have to pay for them on Twitter now, don't you?
You have to pay for them. Mine's been took. I've not paid. Not paid yet. But, yeah, it's, you know, support that person who you've been mates with for years. I don't mean, like, you're allowed to support other people as well. But it's clout chasing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's clout
100%.
chasing, and I don't like that.
Yeah, it has been.
And that's basically what's going on. I keep rambling, but my friends, like, never been like that.
Yeah.
Never been like that. Never will be like that. So, yeah.
You mentioned social media there, and I think you made your debut in 2007. Is that correct? Is it Joe
2006.
2006.
On Joe Calzaghe, Sakio Bika.
Yeah.
October 06. Jeez, that's 17 years ago coming up.
Long time ago.
I'm getting old.
But the thing is with that, you was moving your own tickets and creating a big fan base.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, when I was a teenager, and social media was in its, like, infancy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm guessing you weren't using
MySpace, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably back in 2006.
Facebook was, like, as well, but I do remember, Facebook. Obviously, Facebook was massive, wasn't it? But for a bit, I'm sure MySpace
is off, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would, and I probably wouldn't recommend it too much. But I know there's a few fighters who've done that. Josh Warrington, he's very similar, still does, and but I always sort of done it myself. And listen, I had towards as the career went on, and the tickets got bigger and bigger, and the fights got bigger. I'd have a few people out. Phil, who was a Morson employee, he'd help me out. My friend Sean. William, he'd be outside the arena meeting people on the day and stuff like that. And that's sort of what's crazy, because I know in a few weeks I'll probably end up meeting someone outside the arena with tickets, and he used to do it. And it's but no, I did. I'd go and meet him, and I think I don't know whether that's just, I'd be a bit cheesy there, like the working class in you. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I could have had a hard day sparring, hard days. I'm whipping round like tickets, people and stuff like that, and then it'd send you mad like someone like, oh, have you got an extra one? Or, oh, I don't need 4 now. I only need 3, but you took some off a roll, so there's another one. You're like, oh, it'd send you, it'd do your brains in. But it was, like when I look back now, and I always remember people go, oh, you'll miss it one day. You'll miss the things you think you hate one day. And I don't even miss that, but there is sometimes, and I look back now and I just laugh and think, wow, yeah.
Yeah, it is crazy. And you strike me as that sort of person where you need to be busy. You need to tire yourself out all day, every day, because you're doing it now, aren't you? You've always got a packed schedule. You're a TV pundit now as well, aren't you?
Yes, the little bits of media stuff. And no, you enjoy it, but it is, I do. I think, like, so when I split up, when I finished boxing, I split up from boxing. Yeah. Jeez, I'm not that lucky. When I finished boxing, I thought that, I'd be a lot more chilled out of what would I be doing with my time. But I feel like I'm busier now than what I was when I was boxing, because I knew the importance of trying to get some rest in and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I suppose I wouldn't have it any other way. I can't really switch off, me. Yeah, I can't switch off. Like, sometimes I wake up, it's probably not that healthy, to be honest. I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking about things and, right, this and that, is that in place and that. And I can't say, I probably contradict myself, because it's not like, I'm always regimental or not. I'm not, but I'll think about things a lot. I'll probably overthink things. I think we're all a little bit guilty of that, aren't we? But, yeah, I think boxers, sports people in particular, they struggle with life after boxing, after the sport's finished. But I think it helps massively that I'm still involved in it. People go, do you miss it? And I don't know. I don't miss it. It's because I'm still very much involved in it. If I didn't do the media side of things, if I wasn't coaching, if I wasn't in the gym with the kids, if I wasn't, if I just wasn't around the boxing, then I probably would miss it. I'm still there at the big nights and stuff like that, but maybe watching a friend have their big night. So I don't miss it. But I sometimes feel guilty with that, because I know boxers who struggle bad. It's like they've lost a limb or something like that. And I get that. I get why they do, because for so many years, you've had this routine of wake up, like you had your meals are planned, or if the look at us to have them done for you, or whichever it may be, everything it does become right. Do this at that time, rest. Do this, that, rest. Then you're watching opponents and stuff like that, or you're going over things. So I think that having a get out plan is something that's so important from every job. From every job, I always knew that I didn't want to carry on too long. Like, I believed I could have carried on at a good level. I'm not saying the highest level, but a good level for longer. Probably earned more money. But I know how dangerous boxing can be. As much as I love it, I know how dangerous boxing can be. And I thought, no, I want to get out when the time's right. And I really believe I do that. And there's people now, like, still go, it's like 3.5 years on. Yeah. They go, we're going to see a comeback. We're going to see absolutely no chance. Like, I think I've stayed, in shape. But no, not at all. Not at all. I knew the moment I'd walk away, that would be it forever. Did he have more left in the tank? Possibly, but mentally I'd done it, checked out.
You've done it absolutely bang on as well, because the MMA guys I was speaking to, like George St. Pierre, for example, he had to leave the sport due to, he was going through depression at the time after he narrowly won against Johnny Hendricks in 2013. Yeah. So he was intelligent enough to recognise that within himself, went through that experience, overcame that, then went and won the belt against Michael Bisping 5 years later. And he just decided to retire on top as champion. And it takes a very self-aware person to do that. And now you're looking back on a legacy that isn't tarnished.
Yeah, and I'd seen that as well. With other fighters carry on. Like, I seen fighters who I knew who had great careers, and they started losing to people who might not have been sparring partners for them, at the peak. And I thought, I've got a little bit more self-respect, a little bit more pride about myself, maybe ego than that. Do you know what I mean? And I just think that's so important. And obviously, you mentioned like GSP there and St. Pierre. Like, you could only imagine the offers that was flooding in. You're world champion again. I was like, no, I'm at peace. I've got it, and I'll walk away. So that's not. Then it is legacy. He might have carried on, and he might have took a beating off some young gunner or some like talent then, and it might have, the question would have been, oh, would have he done it in his peak? Would have he not? And I just think, with any job, I'm talking like I've got everything planned here. I'm probably not, but it's probably good speaking about it. But I think every job, probably every business, you've got to have some kind of get out plan. At what point do you set yourself goals, don't you? You set yourself goals, when I've achieved this or that. And I know boxing is a little bit different because you're not sat behind a computer desk, or you're not, whatever it be doing, you're not doing jobs where you're not as in danger as taking blows to the head and putting your body under a lot of stress. So certain jobs more than others, you've got to sort of think, right, well, I've achieved that. I'm happy. Am I going to be satisfied at that, or is it always going? I'm always going to want more. I'm always going to want more. And I think that, with that, I just believe you've got to know when the time is right to get out before it starts taking away from you. Whether that be in a business, whether it be in a work where maybe they're doing too many hours, where you're living to work rather than working to live. Do you know that saying? So, yeah, I just believed it was always my thing. Once I got out, I'd never go back, but I'd always be involved in the sport.
Yeah, and you mentioned the dangers of the sport, taking blows to the head. We talked about Kieran Farrell before. That was a horrific situation where you was just doing your job.
Yeah.
Kieran, I've spoke to Kieran a bunch of times about this, and he was pre-fight. He was going through a bad weight cut. He was dehydrating himself. He was eating ice cubes. He was and he wasn't in a good way heading into that fight. And unfortunately, things went really wrong for him at the end of the fight. He collapsed, didn't he? For you, after that fight, did you reconsider? Is it worth the possibility of those things happening? Because that was a combination of bad weight cutting and the dangers of taking blows to the head, wasn't it?
Yep, absolutely. I would think for a good bit that I want to box anymore. I always remember trainer Joe Gallagher saying it took me a few years to get over that. I just lost a bit of spite, a bit of an edge in me. And when I look back, I probably didn't realise at the time what I did, and it took a lot from me. Mentally, and I remember obviously when it happens and you just sort of praying everything's going to be all right. But I wouldn't wish it on anyone, and I always think like I'm always thankful like Kieran's made a full recovery. We had a great fight, and I always say about Kieran would have gone very far, but that wasn't his path, his plan, and he's come away and he's doing great things now, and what he's doing in the community, what he's doing, what he's coaching some of the fighters he's bringing through, the shows he's putting on. He's still got that crazy work ethic now, but in another way. And Kieran might have a different attitude. Or does he miss it? He missed it because he didn't manage to achieve what he set out to achieve, and which he very well might have done that if it wasn't for the injury. So that's when it's probably hard to accept, but rather than feel sorry for himself and dwell in that, he's thought, no, I'm going to be the best I can be at this, best I can be at that. And he's bringing through champions of his own now. So I think that's how he gets his buzz. And now he's doing well. But it made me think, is it all worth it? Of course it did, yeah. It was an horrible time, and moments of that night, what stayed with me forever, and I still think about now.
I mean, Kieran, incredible human being, isn't he? It's amazing to see the friendship that you guys have developed since that as well. He always talks about you, always posts about you online, and like I said, he's massively successful in his position as a coach, as a gym owner, and his brother as well. Great potential as well in him.
Yeah, sorry. It is now that and it's mad, like, because before the fight, there's never needle. There's a little bit of
Just
back
Joe,
and
weren't
forth.
it?
But even like Kieran will say he was a hothead. Do you know what I mean? He was a hothead, and even like with Nay and stuff before. But like now, I've been one of his biggest supporters now. Do you know what I mean? But and Kieran as well. Like I say all the time, I'm buzzing to see what he's doing and like some of the fighters he's bringing through and his work ethic's mad. He's I don't think anyone would outwork him. Crazy. I don't mean just in a boxing. I just mean in life. Whether it be him with the kids, the energy he brings to them, his pro fighters, then PTs that he's doing it. He's just non-stop, and I think, wow, yeah, you've got to respect that.
And we had Tasha on last time, and we talked about her relationship with Joe Gallagher, and Joe would sometimes say, you know, you stay silent, I'm going to sort this out at the press conference, whatever. And he did that at the Kieran press conference.
Yeah, he did. And obviously done it for Tash that night. And you've got to realise as well with Joe, and Joe will get stick, but one thing he does, he loves and cares about his fighters so much. And he's obviously that night, because I was just sort of laid back, yeah, whatever, and I thought, no, well, I'll give you something to bite at, and I'll fly at you, and that's, don't think Kieran needed an invite to be overly aggressive anyway, and that's sort of what he'll do. And then with Tasha, I always say a massive thing where Joe needs credit for, because when Tash fought, do you remember Terry Harper?
Yeah, this is the story that she told last time.
Tash was a huge underdog. No one really gave her a chance. And Joe said things in the presser where people who don't like Joe was, wow, he's going to get proven wrong, and bang, he didn't. He was almost right in everything he said. So you've got to respect that as well, do you know what I mean? And listen, when it goes wrong as well, if I said about any manager, listen, in football, sometimes I love Mourinho, but when Mourinho will get things wrong, some people love it because they'll say, oh, he's arrogant, he's this and that. But no, I think mind sort of, as a coach, there was mind games as well. Do you know what I mean? He played mind games with us. Tasha will tell you. With us, there'd be times where he'd do things to get that extra bit out of me. And the old saying, some fighters need a carrot, some need a stick.
Yeah.
And he'd know when to use it perfect with me. And I think all the fighters, he knows that it's not just as simple as Joe coming and holding pads or watching a video saying, you do this, you throw that shot. It's so much more. He'll study someone as well, like how they react best to things, their body language to things. And it is mad. Like, and I always say this because obviously I'm a boxing coach myself now, and I always say, and it's not me being lazy, I never switch off, but I could never have the kind of detail that Joe has, and I respect that massively, because I think, that'd send me mad. But like, Joe would be anything from, he would study so many things, and that's what makes him such a great coach. Listen, I hope I can be a great coach and achieve, so half the stuff, if that, what Joe has, but that's what separates him from a lot of other coaches.
Do you remember the first time that you met Joe, and
Absolutely.
Was you in your pro career anyway, or was he with you from the very beginning?
No. But like, obviously, no, I wasn't with Joe from the very beginning of my pro career. But the first time I met Joe Gallagher was it was 2000. Yeah, it was. I remember it was in the local school. It was in the schoolboy championships in the area final or the area semi-final, and we was actually in opposite corners. I was boxing one of Joe's lads, and he was there, and I didn't realise Joe was warming up his lad, and I'm like, I didn't realise. And then anyway, I boxed and I beat Joe's lad. He was a good lad. We ended up having a few fights actually, but I beat him. And I always remember Joe coming up to me and he says, "You're a good lad, you know, your jab's fantastic. For a young lad," he went, "You'll go all the way to the national final this year," and I did, and it stuck with me ever since. And I'd always talk to him at shows, and even back then at the amateurs, I noticed how he studied fighters, and he just wanted to be a winner, and I respected that. And then when I went with Joe after maybe about 14 fights, something like that, I went with Joe, and we kick-started something like that. I probably always wanted to, do you know what I mean? I probably always wanted to, and yeah, we had some unbelievable nights. And you got to remember, Joe took me on when a lot of people thought I wasn't going anywhere. So I'll always be in debt to him for that. And we have some great moments, and I'll help Joe now alongside. I always try to learn from him. I'll try and get in, once a week or a little bit more, and Joe help be alongside him. And it's mad, even now, the hunger. Obviously, he's just moved gyms now. He's moved back over to Champs Camp, Moss Side, and the hunger, determination he's got after what he's achieved as a coach. I think you can only respect that. It's mad. Like some people probably will say it's mad. And I think, wow, how do you still do that? Maybe I'll be like that. I don't know. Maybe I'll be like that. But I think, no way. But it's you've got to respect someone with that mentality, that work rate, that desire. After all these years, you look at all the greats in any sport, then they're going to achieve their what one thing they all have in common, and why they achieve so much is their work rate.
And we mentioned before you achieved your dream of a world title in the second fight against Darlis Perez.
Yeah.
The first one was a draw, and the first one was coming off the back of a horrendous attack that happened in the January of that year. It was meant to be
December.
Was it December?
He was meant to fight in January.
It was meant to be against Richard Abril. Yeah. So, what was that whole experience like, and afterwards?
Yeah, that was, when you're on about dark moments in your life, that was right up there. And because I thought that, when you say about Kieran, it was took away from it. I believe that night ended my career for a good while. And I was just praying and doing all my rehab, and that one day I'd get cleared to box again. But obviously when I first heard the injuries, I did think I've got no chance. So you're down and you're thinking, I had a young family. I'd just moved into my first house with Mrs., my little boy, and it was a pride thing as well, thinking, I can't believe this, I've got to provide for them, and the only way I know how to provide is to box. And I think it might have been took away from myself, so it was the pride, and I thought, imagine I have to send them back to a mum and dad's, because I can't afford to do that. And then I would have always tried to do my best in whatever I do, and hopefully I would have been successful at something else. But it was when those doubts come in, at that time, I thought like the world had ended. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
it was a horrible, worrying time. So you was trying to... Someone was thieving your next door neighbour's house, weren't they? And you went to pursue them. To
pursue them. Caught them, a few streets away. And, caught for a concrete slab on my head on the blind side when I let one of them go. But you live, you learn. And everything happens for a reason, doesn't it? Everything happens for a reason. And it very nearly cost me. It very nearly cost me my career. Could have cost me more. Thankfully, it didn't. I got a second chance. And I took that second chance, and that was part of the character building. I knew once I got that second chance, not everyone's lucky enough to get that. And I knew I was always dedicated, but I knew I had to give absolutely everything to make sure I fulfilled, what I wanted to do.
That night out after winning the world title must have been absolutely unbelievable. Is that the happiest you've ever been professionally, would you say?
Yeah. Either that or, to be honest, defending it. One or the other.
Barroso,
that was a crazy night.
Yeah.
But listen, the people around you, I always say, when you achieve that highest, you can, what you've always dreamed about, it makes everything. It wasn't that night, it wasn't that training camp, it wasn't the year before. It was right from the moment you set off on that first goal. And I say it all the time, like the sacrifices you make from being a teenager, not going out with your mates, not going to certain parties, and it made every single bit of that worth it. Do you know what I mean? It made all those sacrifices worth it. And, seeing the reaction of your parents, I think anyone who's lucky enough to have a great relationship with the parents, you just want to make them proud, and I know that night I did. So I can always look back at that with the most amazing memories. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, it's people who'd stuck by me, people who'd always supported me. It'd give them that night. Do you know what I mean? And I'll never ever forget those people who come supporting me from bad nights out in leisure centres when it didn't look like my career was going where I thought it was going, or where what I said I could think I could do. Like, do you know what I mean? Where it looked like, it was, a matter of time till I got beat again and the career would cut short, but they still come out supporting me. Now they're the people I was happy to sort of repay them as well with those good nights.
And you fought, a generational talent in Lomachenko.
Yes.
The fight before the retirement fight.
Yes.
You wanted to retire in Manchester, didn't you, and have that send-off?
Yeah.
So what was that experience like?
So Lomachenko, it was, do you know what? I always say it, and you can have, well, what if this, what if that? And I always say, I wish I would have done a few things different. Like, I was incredible shape or stuff like that, but a few little tweaks that I'd made, thinking they'd make me better, and they didn't. But Jamal, you knew me a long time. I'm a realist as well, where I'm not suggesting I would have beat Lomachenko that night. I would have needed Lomachenko to have a bad night and me to have an unbelievable night, for the upset to happen. But I believe that I'd trained hard, I'd got myself in great shape, and I believe that. And that night, I think straight away, like what I thought was going to work and then engage, it didn't. And I was then chasing the fight almost instantly because he'd got the range so good. And I don't want to say regret, I wish I would have just took the fight to him straight away. I might have got knocked out earlier, but I believe I would have had bits of success where I hardly did that night. So that was just like one of the hard things. But I also said I probably caught for Lomachenko for one of the last times he's been so ruthless and brilliant. I mean, he's still there now. I've got a feeling he's got one more great performance in him, and I think he'll win all the marbles in a few weeks. Yeah. Maybe the 20th he's fighting Devin Haney. But we're talking about an all-time great. And yeah, when I look back now, it was great. And I remember after it thinking, I feel like I've let people down and stuff. And my mate sent me a video in a bar, and I didn't, but listen, get over here, they're all singing and they're all having a great time. And then other people listen, you brought us to LA, we would never come here, and this and that. And I remember having a drink with one of my mates on somewhere in Beverly Hills, and he was there, and he's like, never thought I'd ever get here, or that. Just little things one of my mates from being kids and stuff. And so there's great memories. Do you know what I mean? There's unbelievable memories of that trip, that night. I just always look back, and when I see him, I can go, oh yeah, I shared the ring with him one day. It certainly didn't end the way I wanted it to, but he's a special talent.
And the decision to retire, it was the fight afterwards in November.
Yeah, it was made before it. When I think sometimes, I think I should have just retired there and then, because even in the build up to the last fight, in the gym, I looked really well, and people were like, he's not going to retire him. He looks well. He looks, But I knew mentally, I just wasn't there. I wasn't there whatsoever. And on the night, and I boxed it was terrible on the night. I got a win, but I made unbelievably hard work of it. And people thought it could have gone the other way, but it was mad. I'd signed out on a win in Manchester. That was brilliant, but I'd probably checked out before it in the summer. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it weren't like I was taking shortcuts in training camp or all like that, but just mentally the fighter wasn't there. And it was after I was down for a bit after thinking, box rubbish. But an hour or two later I was with everyone, and it was almost, do you know what it was like? It was like, do you know what, thank God that's over. It's done, and I'm done now, and I don't have to do it again. And it was crazy. So I thought, when I think like that, I think, obviously, I should have retired in the summer. But I don't have no regrets. Listen, it was just that way of signing out. Do you know what I mean? But there won't be a night, although I'm always thankful for everyone who comes watches. The night that I remember is when we got to the top of the hill and stuff like that, and they're the nights that stick with me forever.
You gave us some of the best nights this country has seen in the boxing ring, and this is a question I ask frequently as well to athletes. If you could now give, say, a 12-year-old Anthony Crolla some advice, having lived everything that you've lived now and achieved everything that you've achieved, what would you say to a young Anthony Crolla?
I'd say, listen, you've got to be prepared for some lows, but those are going to make the highs that much better. So when you've got those lows, you've got to try and take a lesson from it. You've got to try and take a lesson from it. You've got to try and take, what can I do better? How can I improve? To put it right. And I think I've done that pretty well. But it was just so straightforward and just, keep the focus. I always say, not everyone achieves dreams, but you give it absolutely everything and you come up short. That's okay. That's okay because you give it everything. If you've done something half-heartedly, something that you say you've always wanted to do and you don't achieve that, well, I don't know if I could live with that doubt. I don't know if I could live with that doubt thinking, what if? Regrets. I just think there can't be too much worse than that, can there? So I think whatever you do, you've got to give it everything. You've got to give it everything. I say something to my little lad now. My little lad's 9 and plays a lot of football. And I'll say, Jesse, listen, and what do I say? I say, Jesse, what does Dad say? He goes, it's okay losing or coming up short, but it's not okay not giving your best. And that's what I think. I think there's nothing wrong with coming up short or, losing a game, losing a fight, but as long as you give it everything on that night, that's all right. That's okay.
You strived and fought and achieved everything that you set out to achieve, and gave us absolutely incredible nights, mate. And it was incredible growing up watching you, and now seeing you train the next generation. I'm excited to see everything you achieve as a coach as well and a trainer. So I really appreciate your time reflecting.
No, thank you very much. It's great to catch up. Like I say, now we see each other at a press, we're passing and we're just, how's things, mate? So it's good for us to have a sit down.
100%. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.